Hello everybody, this is Rob Jake and welcome back. I'm going to show you how to interact with your character similar to this. We have a little question mark above our head that always follows the player around, and then we have a question mark right up here, and when we press E on it, as you can see, a little chat box pops up on the side of the screen, and we start having a conversation. This also allows us to have choices that I coded to be extremely easy, so we can either press 1 or 2, and if we press 2, it gives us an option, and if we press 1, it gives us the other option. So let's get into it. For your project window, go ahead and create a folder and call it scripts. Inside the scripts folder, create a new folder, call it managers. Then inside of here, double click it and then press create C# script, call it interaction manager. Then go back to the scripts folder, then create a new folder and call this one details. Go into this folder and create a new script called Billboard. Then go ahead and open the Billboard script up in Visual Studio. Then go and get rid of all these comments as well as the start function, and then do serialized field, camera, and P camera. Then in the update method, go ahead and do transform.lookat, transform.position, plus P camera dot transform dot rotation times vector 3 dot forward, comma P camera dot transform dot rotation times vector 3 dot up. So put a semicolon there. Next line, go do vector 3 Euler angles equals transform dot Euler angles, and then do Euler angles dot z equals 0, and then do transform dot Euler angles equals Euler angles. And then what this is basically doing is getting the position of the camera, let's go and do player camera. What these next two lines here basically do is overwrites the transform.rotation so that it only follows the player on the horizontal axis and does not follow the player on the vertical axis. So if the player jumps up, it will not follow the player in that direction. And I'll show you what it does without this, but for now, let me just write in this comment. Okay, and this is the Billboard script complete. In order to create a billboard, go to your player, go to her armature, go to root, and then go to hips, spine, chest, upper chest, neck, and then head. And then right about here, we want to create a new canvas. What we're going to do is call this chat billboard. And we want to go to add component and type billboard. And make sure this is billboard with no space in between, because the billboard with the space in between is a script created by Unity and does not work. And we're going to want to go to your FPS controller or whatever camera you have. Hopefully it's FPS because that's the best one that's going to work for this type of thing, and drag the first person character camera to the P camera. If you don't know how to get this FPS controller, by the way, I will put a link in the description down below that will send you the link to the standard assets. And once you've got the standard assets in, you can pretty much just search it up here for first person controller, or just Google it and you can find out how to import a first person controller, unless you want to code it from scratch, which in that case you can do as well. I won't stop you. So we have our chat billboard here. We want to change the canvas render mode to world space. And we want to change this size down to something more realistic, like 0.05 by 0.05. And then we want to change the position X to 000 and on all the axes. And then we want to change the X axis on the rotation to something more like this. And it is still ginormous, which you can't even see it because of how big it is, even though it's at 0.05. So we want to just go ahead and scale this down proportionally until literally 0.001. Or even less than that, really, because of how big canvases are. I don't know why they're so big, but they are. And then we want to just go ahead and put this right above her head. And of course, you can make this smaller if you want. I'm just making mine realistic and about that big, yeah. Then inside this chat billboard, we basically have a canvas that we can change in the world space. So what I'm gonna do is create a raw image here, and then make it a little bit bigger, just so that we can actually see it. And I'll actually change the alpha a little bit down. So maybe like 130 or 180. That should be fine there. And then I'm actually gonna make it a little bit grayer. This is completely optional. You don't have to do this. I'm going to change this to chat icon. I'll go ahead and duplicate this, put it back inside this, and then make this a little bit smaller. This is completely just a detail. And then detail, if I could spell. Then inside this, I'm going to create a UI text. And actually what I'm going to use is Text Mesh Pro, because Text Mesh Pro is a lot better than text. And I'm going to go ahead and press a question mark right here. And then as you can see, it is flipped around right now. And if that does become a problem, we can fix that. But for now, let's just go ahead and do this. And I'm going to try to make this as centered as possible. Then over here, I'm going to make this bold. I'm going to change this color back to black. And I'm going to do align center. And I'm going to do font size a little bit bigger than it is right now. So something a lot bigger, that is. I'll make it like 120 should do fine. So now we have a question mark here. It's backwards over here, but that should be okay. We should go ahead and save this here and then play it. As you can see, our question mark does flip around, which is exactly what we want. And it is following our camera exactly how we want it to follow our camera. If that bold is actually a little bit too much, which I feel like it is for me, I'm just going to unbold it, which makes it a little bit better. So I'm just going to make it look a little bit nicer color. And yeah, it's a little bit grayer. That's pretty fine. And it does follow you around everywhere. Next up, I actually want this thing to be interactable, just like how I can interact with this exclamation mark right here. So what I'm going to do is go inside the chat icon, I'm going to duplicate everything, and I'm going to delete detail from inside of it. And I'm going to get rid of the parenthesis 1 right here, and I'm going to rename this to active. I'm going to also change this color to orange, but of course you can change it to whatever you want. But I'm going to make mine orange. You can literally do whatever you want with this. And I'm going to change active's position inside of the hierarchy, inside of the chat icon, but just right above the detail. And yeah, I think that looks good. What we want to do next is go ahead and create a new cube, and I'm actually going to do this outside of the chat billboard. So I'm just going to do it inside of the head so that the scale doesn't get completely messed up. And I'm going to put this inside the chat billboard, and I'm going to change the rotation to 0, 0, 0. And I'm going to change the size to the size of my question mark here, and a little bit bigger just to make it a little bit bigger than the player. And I'm going to change the Y to something like this. And I'm going to turn off the mesh render. And I'm also going to tick on the box collider, is trigger equals true. I'll make the x-axis a little bit bigger over here and change the y-axis down and change the z-axis as well. Now this trigger will actually follow the camera as well because it is inside of the chat billboard. I'm going to name this to interact trigger. And inside of this, I'm going to assign the interaction manager. Double click this to open it inside of Visual Studio. We want to go ahead and just for now get rid of everything here and create a new serialized field, game object, and let's go ahead and do trigger color, and then do void on mouse over, and then on mouse over trigger color dot set active equals true. Then we want to create a new void on mouse exit, trigger color dot set active equals false. And these will automatically be called by Unity, so we don't need to worry about anything here. I'm actually going to go ahead and rename trigger color to active and save that script. Go back to Unity, wait for it to compile. Inside of the chat icon, assign the active to the interaction manager's active and turn it off. Go and save the game and press play. And as you can see, when we hover over this, it turns yellow and we are able to interact with it. So now our player is waiting to be interacted with. And just because it feels like it's missing something, instead of the active, for me, I'm going to go ahead and create a new point light. I'm just going to kind of play around with this until I get something I like here. The only reason I'm doing this is to make it look like the player is actually about to interact with the character by making like a little bit more, something that looks a little bit more interactable. So yeah, it is really important that whenever someone in your game is going to interact with something within your game, you make it look like they're actually interacting, or else they won't know. For example, creating a crosshair that says to press a button like the button E or A or left click, or whatever, basically whatever. But if they don't know they're going to interact, they might not know that something is actually working when they hover over it, and therefore they won't know if your game is working or if it's just bugged out. So yeah, if I go ahead and hover over this, as you can see now, we have like a little orange light that pops up when we hover over here. which is perfect in my opinion. Next up, inside of the interaction manager, go ahead and incorporate the Unity engine.ui, and then go ahead and create a new IE numerator, and then call it chat. And now just go ahead and do yield return null. Also go ahead and create a new private integer, and we're going to call this current line, and we're going to set that to 0. We're also going to want to do serialized field game object. Then we're going to want to create that into an array by putting a square bracket, then a closed square bracket, and then we want to name this choice. We want to create a new serialized field game object array, then name this choice text. I'm going to create another serialized field game object, not an array, and call this chat box, and create another serialized field game text actually, and call this chat box text. Next, on mouse over, we're just going to want to go ahead and do if input dot get key down keycode dot e, which is going to be my interaction button, and then just go ahead and do start coroutine chat open parenthesis close parenthesis, add a semicolon at the end. Okay, so this should be everything for now. I'm also actually last thing for this video, I'm going to create a region by doing hashtag region. I'm going to call this chat. I'm going to want to create end region right here. So now we can open and close this when we need to, because there's going to be a lot of stuff going into this later on, at least. Anyway guys, that was episode 2 of this showed you how to hover over your character with a billboard that follows you wherever you go above the player's head. Your player also has a collider on her now, and you cannot walk through her, and when she sticks out her hands or legs or whatever you want, that also hits you or whatever, because there are colliders on her hands and arms. So yeah, that was this episode. Leave a like if it was helpful, leave a dislike if it was not helpful. Happy holidays. Thanks again. We will see you in the next one.